Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Nick from Part-Time Pilots. Part-Time Pilot specializes in helping you get your private pilot's license so that you can achieve your dream of becoming a pilot. In this video, the way we're helping you is by going over some multiple choice test strategies. So let's get to it. So throughout this video, I'm going to have a bunch of tips, and then towards the end, there's going to be sort of 4 tips for you to take when you just kind of had no idea on the answer, but that they can actually help your chances of getting that answer right. So be sure to watch through the whole video so you can get all these good tips. So believe it or not, there are strategies for taking multiple choice tests that have nothing to do with your knowledge of the material, and they actually help. So this is kind of like game theory stuff that you've heard of. It's not a substitute. I'm going to say this throughout the video, but this is not a substitute for not knowing the material. Okay, you take our online ground school, that's going to get you to know the material at a deep level so that you're ready for any type of question. So this is not a substitute. But let's say there is a couple questions that you're just not ready for. These strategies can help make the difference on whether you're getting that right or wrong. And that could be the difference between a pass and a fail. So again, this is not a substitute for not knowing the material, but these strategies do help. Okay, so the first strategy is read the whole question and all the answer options. Even if you think option A is correct, still read all the options. How many of you, and you guys can comment below, but how many of you had a teacher that gave you this test and it was like, okay, you have 15 minutes to do it, or raise your hand when you're done, and but read all the instructions, and then you went through the test really fast, but the instructions at the top of the page told you just to sign your name on the back and then turn it in. Okay, that was me. I was the one that went through it really fast and didn't read all the directions. So this is kind of along the lines of that. So read the whole question and all the answer options. Even if you think option A or B looks good, read them all. Your brain might not be thinking of all the possibilities. So here's an example. An aircraft's annual condition inspection was performed on July 12th this year. The annual inspection will be due no later than A, July 1st next year, B, July 12th next year, and you might think, boom, July 12th is 1 year. Your brain logically thinks 1 year annually, 1 year, July 12th. But if you don't read July 31st, you might just go with option B, when really, if you read option C, July 31st, it might trigger in your brain, oh yeah, you get the whole rest of the month. It's a calendar. It's 12 calendar months for the annual inspection. That means you get the whole month, and you get up until July 31st. So if you wouldn't have read all through these, you may not have triggered that thought in your brain. So that's the answer, July 31st of next year. All right, so let's go on to number 2. On your scratch pad, so on your FAA written exam, you'll get some pieces of paper and a pencil that you can write on. Write the answers that come to mind right after you read it. This is often the correct answer and can help you decide when you're undecided between 2 answers. So let's say you followed number 1, you read the whole question and all the answer options, and you're not sure right away. On your scratch pad, so let's say it's question number 14, and then write your first thought. So let's say your first thought when you first read it, you thought, okay, B, your first impulse or your best guess at that time. And then skip it, and you'll come back later, and we'll get to that. But just write it down. Write your first initial instinct down on a piece of paper that you can come back to later and be like, well, this was my first initial instinct. Because more times than not, your initial instinct, something's triggering in your brain that you remember, but you just can't bring it to the front of your brain. All right, and number 3, if you still aren't sure, start eliminating ones you know are not correct. Sometimes you can eliminate 2 of the answers and find the answer through process of elimination. All right, and a great example of these is calculation-based questions. So here in this example, we have this weight and balance example where you have to balance this side of the fulcrum with this side of the fulcrum. And to do this, you add up the moments of each weight on this side, and they need to equal the moment of the weights on the other side. So the way you can do that, this is asking how much weight must be located at point Y to balance the plank, and it gives you 3 options for that. So instead of like making an equation, you can make an equation where Y is an unknown and solve for Y, or what you can do is you can just say, all right, well, I'm just going to try all these by process of elimination. I'm going to say Y is 30 pounds, and I'm going to see if that balances the plank. And if it does, then that's my answer. And then let's say option A does not balance the plank, and so you go to option B, 150 pounds. Do the math. Does that balance the plank? Let's say it doesn't, and in this case it does not. The answer is 300. Move on to option C. The only thing I will say is when you do this, I would, even if option A or B balances the plank, still do the calculations for all of them, because you might get that 2 of these balance the plank and you actually made a math error in one of them, and you'll have to go back and review both of those to make sure and find your error. So still do every single option, but you'll be able to eliminate a couple of these options, and then you have your option that you know is correct. Okay, number 4. If after you perform the above steps you still don't know it, mark the question and skip it for the time being. Okay, so answer all the questions you know first, then once you're done with those, come back to the ones you don't know. All right, so this is kind of like number 2. All right, number 2, we said, write down what first comes to mind. So when you do number 1, you read the whole question and all the answers, and you still don't know it, perform number 2 and write down your initial thought, and then skip it. Now we're performing number 4. Skip it, and on these computer exams, you can actually mark. You can like flag the question, skip, and come back later. If for some reason, I believe they all have that, but if for some reason they don't, again, let's say you're on questions 20, write down on your scratch pad, like 20 question mark or something like that, and then skip it, go on, finish through all of them, and then come back to the ones you missed. Because it's not worth, because this is a time limit, you get 2.5 hours, you can really screw yourself. Let's say just on like the 4th question, you just can't get it, and you spend 45 minutes on that question trying to figure it out. Now you don't have a lot of time for the rest of the test. You could really screw yourself. You could end up, not even getting to the last 5 questions, or having to speed through and being really stressed out. So go through all of them. You'll probably find that you can get a majority of them. Let's say you can easily get 40 of them. Then go back and start going through the harder ones and judge, like, okay, I have 20 left. I have 1 hour left. All right, so that's about 3 minutes per question. So try it for 3 minutes. If you still can't get it, move on and then go to the next one. So you got to use logic, and you got to kind of plan your strategy as you're going through it. Skip the ones you don't know, come back and answer all the ones you do know, and then come back to the ones you don't know towards the end. Okay, now if you still aren't sure on the answer, never leave it blank. This is a multiple choice test, and for the FAA written, there's 3 options. There's option A, there's option B, and there's option C. So that's a 1 in 3 chance. That's 33% chance if you were to just completely guess at random. Okay? So that's still pretty good odds, right? So never leave it blank. At least guess you have a 33% chance. But try to eliminate at least one answer option. If you eliminate one answer option, let's say option A, now you have a 50% chance. All right, so let's see an example. So altimeter setting is the value to which the barometric pressure scale of the altimeter is set. So the altimeter indicates, okay, you have calibrated altitude of field elevation, absolute altitude of field elevation, true altitude of field elevation. When you're reading this, you might be like, well, I don't know the answer, but calibrated altitude, I've heard of calibrated airspeed. I've never heard of calibrated altitude. Let me get rid of that one. I haven't heard of that. And then now you're down to just a 50% chance. Okay, so because now you're just guessing between 2 instead of 3, so it's a 1 in 2 chance, 50% chance, and chances are higher that you're going to get the right answer. So try to eliminate at least one, if not two. Obviously, if you eliminate two, you have the correct answer. Okay, the next tip, if you still aren't sure what the answer, look for words like always or never. Okay, these words mean your answer cannot have any counterexamples to the situations in the question that make it untrue. So let's look at an example. So the completion of an annual condition inspection and the return of the aircraft to service should always be indicated by. So this is always, so that means there should be no situations for each of these answers that make it untrue. So option A, the relicensing date on the registration certificate. Well, I could get a new registration date certificate with a licensing date in between my annual inspections, because I get an annual inspection in July, I get a registration certificate in December, and my annual inspection, isn't due until later. So that doesn't make sense, because I've found a way that makes this not always for option A. Option B, an appropriate notation in the aircraft maintenance records. Okay, if the appropriate notation, so that I know that the certified mechanic has to sign off of it with their name and number. They have to state what they did on the annual condition. Okay, so that I can't think of anything that makes that untrue. And then option C, an inspection stickers placed on the instrument panel that lists the annual inspection completion date. Again, I know that it has to be more than just the date, completion date. It has to have who did it and their certificate number and make sure that, and their signature. So that's not always true either. So I'm going to go with option B, and that happens to be the correct answer. So look for these words like always or never and try to come up with situations that make that not true, so you can eliminate some of the answers. All right, the next one is, if all else fails, look for positive answers as opposed to negative ones. Negative answers have the words not, never, or don't. So these last couple tips are really about just if you completely don't know to guess. So once again, I'm going to say that you want to use the knowledge that you have, and none of these strategies are more important than learning the information and the knowledge. And you should try to use logic to eliminate the answers and improve your chances of getting it right before you do that. But if you can't do any of that, you don't know, your knowledge is not there for the question, you can't eliminate any of the answers, look for these last couple tips, because again, you don't want to leave it blank. If all else fails, look for positive answers as opposed to negative ones. Negative answers have the words not, never, or don't. So again, this is not always true, but a majority of the time, or a larger portion of 33% of the time, it is true. And that's found statistically to be true from tests all over the place. So here's an example. A flashing white light signal from the control tower to a taxiing aircraft is an indication to... Let's say we don't know any of these answers, we don't know any of this, and so we're just like, we're going to completely guess. So let's look for negative words. Okay, so this word has not in it. Taxi only on taxiways and not cross runways. Okay, so let's eliminate that one because we want to look for positive words and not negative words. So now we can choose between A and B, and now we have a 50% chance rather than 33% chance. And again, this is not always true, but if you have no idea and you can't eliminate any from any of your knowledge, try and use this strategy. And again, it wasn't B, it was return to the starting point. All right, and the final tip is look for answers with the most information. Oddly, this is the correct answer more often than not, but only use this if all else fails. So again, these last two, only use if all else fails. You have no information. Okay, so let's do an example of this one. Preventative maintenance has been performed on aircraft. What paperwork is required? All right, so if we have no idea, we can look, and obviously option C has a lot more information than the other two. the signature, certificate number, and kind of certificate held by the person approving the work, and a description of the work must be entered in the aircraft maintenance record. That has easily the most info, so let's go with that. Just a complete guess. I don't know why this is the case. I think it has something to do with test makers' mindset. When they have to come up with wrong answers, they are using their imagination, and they just have to come up with it, and it's easier to come up with shorter answers. I think that's the case, but so in this option, that's correct. So there you go. Those are the strategies for taking multiple choice tests. I just want to stress again, this is not a replacement for learning the material like you would in our online ground school. You want to do that. You want to best prepare yourself for any type of questions so you fundamentally understand the topics. But there's always a chance that there's questions on there that you're not prepared for. And so it's good to have these strategies. It could make the difference between a pass and a fail. And then again, you want to try and eliminate and use logic first. And then if all else fails, you can kind of use these statistical advantages of picking things like, looking for those negative words and not picking that one, or looking for the longest answer like we did here. So hopefully this helps you guys. This really can make the difference. Again, it's not a replacement, but hopefully this helps, and thanks for watching. Please like the video and comment below if you have any others or any questions on any of this. And then as always, follow us on Instagram at part_time_pilot.